'Twas many, many a year ago, I read a book. I read a book for class called, I think it was Popular Christian Literature. And the idea was these were books that a lot of people had read, but they're not deep in theology. And they are sort of the books you can find at Walmart. The book was called Your Best Life Now. I read the book. I had to for a class, and to put it as nicely as I possibly can, I did not like the book. Aside from very poor theology, if you can call it that, espoused in the book focused solely on the individual. It's all about what God can do for you personally as an individual person. If you say the right words, if you do the right things, God is going to become like Santa Claus or Oprah Winfrey and just give you everything your little heart desires, all because you did the right thing. Now, we don't have time to unpack everything that was wrong with the book. So instead, I want to focus on the one singular issue that gnawed me the most, and still to this day gnaws me about it. It focuses so much on the individual. See, it's all about God blessing you, what God can do for you. You, singular, as a person, you doing everything you can to curry God's favor. And this is dangerous theology because it focuses on the individual at the center of the faith. Your faith becomes something that you do so that you can get things from it. And that is wrong for a number of reasons. First and foremost, our faith isn't centered on anything except the person of Jesus Christ and Christ alone. It's not about what God can do just for one individual person, but what God has already done and our response to it. Second, focusing on the individual takes away from the knowledge that we need to be in community with one another. Taken together, the thoughts and theories in that book create a faith system based on the individual and not on Jesus. It becomes all about what God is doing for you as long as you put in the work. And this is literally the opposite, the absolute opposite of what our faith is about. Jesus himself even said that the law is summed up in 2 commandments. He was asked for one commandment to be given to sum up everything. What's the greatest commandment? And he said very simply, love God and love people. That's it. If you want to follow the law, if you want to follow the Torah, if you want to follow the prophets, you love God and you love people. And because of this, we have a great example in Jesus Christ for how to live in community with one another and with God. Jesus is not just the intersection of God and humanity, but also the sign, the guide for how we are supposed to live in love with one another. And this actually starts in our gospel reading today. And we know the idea, we know the pictures, we've seen a bunch of pictures. You can look on Google and Pinterest and all these websites and whatnot, and you can see pictures of Jesus Christ as a shepherd. And we know that Jesus is the good shepherd. In this, we are the sheep, and Jesus is the shepherd. And we hear the shepherd's voice, and we follow, and we don't follow anyone else. We solely listen to Jesus Christ, because Jesus is the shepherd that has been with us since we were itty-bitty baby cute-looking lambs. Yet Jesus takes this analogy one step further. He is not only the shepherd, he says, but he is the gate. Jesus is the gate, which is kind of confusing because if he's the shepherd, how can he be the gate? And to really understand that, we have to sort of unpack it historically and culturally. And we have to understand that sheep pens at this time were usually built of stone and some wood, and that the shepherd would put the sheep in the pen and sit, stand, and sleep in the space for the door. So literally nothing could go in and out of the pen if they were not going through the shepherd. Nothing can pass except if the shepherd allows it. This is true for thieves. This is true for wolves. This is true for other things that would hurt or steal the sheep. It was impossible in this situation to not have to deal with the shepherd. Now, of course, we can look at this theologically and say that you need to go through Jesus to be one of his sheep. And yes, that is 100% accurate. You can't get in the pen unless you go through Jesus. And I will back that up. It is a totally correct way to look at things. However, we have to also understand and look at the shepherd who was there in the gate, being the gate, keeping the bad things out. This shepherd literally puts their life on the line for the sheep. If you're a thief and you want a sheep bad enough, you're going to do everything you can to get into the pen, up to and including beating and murdering the shepherd. And we know that Jesus Christ literally died for us. This was done out of great love that he has for us. You see, we oftentimes hear things about how Jesus is a super nice guy, and that's totally true. And how we should all be more Christ-like. And again, that is 110% correct and true. We know that Jesus is the Son of God. We know that Jesus is God incarnate, Emmanuel, God with us. But even more than that, Jesus exemplifies what it really means to be a human, which is really weird. That Almighty God is the best at being human, giving us the example that we are supposed to live in. We're supposed to be Christ-like. That's what Christian means, is Christ-like. And when you look at Jesus, when you read the Gospels, when you see Jesus being about community, when you see Jesus being about love, when you see Jesus being about mercy and grace, that's not just God saying, I'm doing this for you. It is God looking you square in the eye and saying, go and do likewise. I have to say that this is displayed in the text from Acts today. The disciples decide to go all in on Jesus' way of life. They literally live together, they eat together, they pray together, they do all of these things together. They give away their possessions, and when they give away their possessions or they sell their possessions, they pocket the money so that it goes into a collective pool and it's distributed as needed. Day by day, it says, their numbers grew. Did you see that? Their numbers grew day by day. Their numbers aren't growing because of, fancy lavish music or fog machines or handsome preachers or even theology for that matter. No. Their numbers grow because people can see what it really means to follow Jesus. Their world literally revolves around the person of Jesus Christ. Post-resurrection, they took the words of Christ to heart. They didn't even just study them, no. They lived their entire lives by them. Every action, everything they did, everything they said was utilized to change their life radically. And this is why they stayed in community with one another. They understood the simple truth that God was trying to teach them, that God was trying to show humanity. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Now, yes, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that that is a famous line by everyone's favorite Vulcan, Dr. Spock, from the second Star Wars movie. That doesn't make it any less true, and that doesn't make it any less of the same thing that Jesus tried to show the people. This is what is true about community. We understand and we know that we are stronger together than we are apart from one another. If you try to break one stick, or you know what, even this, spaghetti. Next time you cook spaghetti, and let's face it, it's really easy to make during the pandemic. It's just noodles and sauce, but you need to get fancy with the sauce sometimes, but I digress. The next time you make spaghetti, take one thin strand of spaghetti and just snap it and see how easy it is to break that one singular solitary strand. But now when you get a whole box of spaghetti, you're going to have to put a little bit of muscle, because the force trying to break the spaghetti is distributed not just among one thing, but among all the strands of spaghetti. Now, yes, eventually you will break it, but you will have to exert more force and pressure to do that. Because the spaghetti, much like us, is stronger together. Now, we know that. We understand that. That's one of the things that people keep saying in this time. We are stronger together than we are apart from one another. And this is why we do what we do. This is why we gather in worship. This is why we're connected digitally for worship right now, because we understand the truth that we are not just individuals. No, we are a community. And even more than just a community, guess what? We're family. Whether or not we like one another, whether or not we get along with one another all the time, that's absolutely fine. We're still a community. We are still a family, and that is what family is all about. It's not about the individual. It's not about just me. It's not about the music that we play. It's about the good shepherd who keeps us safe and builds us up together. That's why we are connected. But it isn't just about the community either. If we aren't actually being the sheep of Jesus, then what are we doing? If our lives don't reflect what God has done for us, both individually and as a community, as a family, then perhaps we aren't the Christians that God has called us to be. Perhaps we are too focused on the self. Perhaps we forgot what Dr. Spock said. Perhaps we forgot that Jesus says, love God and love people. Maybe we forgot all of that. It's entirely possible. But this, right now, this very moment, this is the chance. This isn't about a personal come to Jesus moment for you. No. This is about the fact that you have already had your personal come to Jesus moment. And this come to Jesus moment is about what are you going to do with your previous come to Jesus moment. Are you the sheep that Jesus has called? This is our chance to show the personal change in our lives, to affect something in the world, in the community, to think about our brothers and sisters and our siblings. This right now is the time, more than ever. If we are indeed stronger together than we are apart, what God has brought together, let no person separate. We can build our community greater than ever before. Now you may be wondering and asking yourselves, okay, but we're all in lockdown, isolation, coronation, whatever you want to call it. So how are we supposed to do that? You follow Jesus. That's all. You follow Jesus, and you realize one simple solitary truth in your life. I'm third. What does that mean? Hierarchy goes God. God above everything else. God number one. Everyone else in the world. Then me. I'm third. After God, after everyone, then it's me. Because I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we are meant to be in community with one another. That we are meant to live and love as God has called us to do. And that's what we need to do. Think of someone else. The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. If Jesus Christ is the example for how we are meant to live our lives, then we are meant to do the things Jesus wants us to do. And one of those things Jesus wants us to do is to be like the apostles and be in community with one another. I hope to God. I hope beyond hope, and I pray beyond pray that we realize one single, simple, solitary truth. Your best life now is not about you. It's about us. Amen.